You may have heard the name Ira Sankey a lot of times in our previous broadcasts, and you might be wondering who this man is. So for our first song today, we will know more about him in this hymn he wrote, A Shelter in the Time of Storm. Ira D. Sankey's influence on the modern gospel hymnody is difficult to measure. It would be almost impossible to complete an evangelistic campaign or a Bible conference today without using at least one hymn written, published, or made popular by him. In all, Sankey contributed his musical talents to the writing of more than 80 gospel songs, as well as compiling more than 10 hymn books in other musical volumes. Toward the end of his life, Sankey became aware that his name was appearing on too many songs, so he began using a pseudonym. The one he chose was Rian A. Dykes, a name which appeared on a number of his hymns. The letters for the pseudonym, when rearranged, spell Ira D. Sankey. Ira Sankey was born of Scotch-Irish ancestry. In 1857, his family moved to New Castle, Pennsylvania, where he attended high school and joined the Methodist Church. Here, he began his first choir work and music ministry. His strong baritone voice soon attracted such attention that crowds would come just to hear him sing. In 1860, Sankey enlisted in the 12th Pennsylvania Regiment. While in the Army, he frequently led the singing for religious services. However, the idea of devoting his life to the music ministry did not seem feasible to him. Upon his return from the service, he became a clerk with the Internal Revenue Service. In 1870, Ira Sankey was sent as a delegate to the YMCA convention at Indianapolis, Indiana, where he first met for the first time the noted evangelist Dwight L. Moody. The group's singing during the meetings had been extremely poor. Finally, the suggestion was made to have Mr. Sankey lead, and immediately there was a new spirit and enthusiasm injected into the gathering. Sankey has left the following account of this initial meeting with the evangelist.
As I drew near Mr. Moody, he stepped forward, took me by the hand, and looked at me with that keen, piercing fashion of his, as if reading my very soul. Then he said abruptly, "Where are you from?" "Pennsylvania," I replied.
"Are you married?"
"I am."
"How many children do you have?"
"2."
"What is your business?"
"I am a government officer."
"Well, you'll have to give it up."
I was much too astonished to make any reply, and he went on speaking as if the matter had already been decided.
"I have been looking for you the last 8 years. You'll have to come to Chicago and help me in my work." After several months of prayerful indecision, Sankey resigned his government position and moved to Chicago with his family to begin his fruitful ministry with the evangelist, and later to become known as the father of the gospel song. For nearly 30 years, Sankey and Moody were inseparable in the work of the gospel, both in the United States and throughout Great Britain. Sankey's smooth, cultured ways complemented and compensated for Moody's rough manner, poor grammar, and impulsiveness. They were often referred to as the David and Jonathan of the gospel ministry. Though Ira Sankey had little or no professional voice training, his voice was described as an exceptionally strong baritone of moderate compass. An English newspaper once wrote the following review: "As a vocalist, Mr. Sankey has not many equals. Possessed of a voice of great volume and richness, he expresses with exquisite skill and pathos the gospel message in words very simple but replete with love and tenderness, and always with marked effect on the audience. It is, however, altogether a mistake to suppose that the blessings which attends Mr. Sankey's efforts is attributed only or chiefly to his fine voice and artistic expression. They no doubt are very attractive and go far to move the affections and gratify the taste for music, but the secret of Mr. Sankey's power lies not only in his gift of song, but in the spirit of which the song is only the expression. Another writer commented as follows regarding Sankey's manner of singing. There was something about his baritone voice that was enormously affecting. He had a way of pausing between lines of the song, and in that pause the vast audience remained absolutely silent. Generally, Sankey accompanied himself on a small reed organ, singing simply but with careful enunciation and much feeling and emotion. Often, however, there was an intense opposition to his human composure hymns and the use of an organ in a service, especially in the meetings in Scotland. Here, some of the staunch conservative Presbyterian Scots spoke of Sankey's kist of whistles and how they believed that there was a devil in each pipe of that organ. Moody often tried to relieve the tension by explaining to the audiences that Sankey's organ was only a very small one, and besides that, he would add, the Psalms were written under the old dispensation and really not meant for people to sing under the new dispensation. This argument would amuse and soothe some, but it did not always satisfy all. Though there were a great number of individuals converted to Christ in these meetings in Scotland, many of these believers still found it difficult to accept the new type of rhythmic gospel music employed by Sankey. The story is told of one meeting in which Sankey had just started a solo when a woman's shrill voice rang from the gallery as she made her way toward the door, crying, "Let me out! Let me out! What would John Knox think of the like of ye?" This woman's abhorrence of gospel music was not hers alone. What she expressed was felt by many of the older Scottish Christians. Another story is told of a troubled Scot who visited his pastor after hearing Sankey sing and said, "Pastor, I cannot do with those hymns. They are all the time in my head and I cannot get them out. The Psalms never troubled me that way." The wise pastor replied, "Very well then, I think you should keep the hymns." A shelter in the time of storm was one of the typical easily sung rhythmical songs that Sankey used extensively in these campaigns. As the meetings progressed throughout the British Isles, Sankey and his gospel music became increasingly respected and accepted. The following paragraph appeared in one of the British papers near the close of the meetings. "Mr. Moody is very fortunate in having such a colleague as Mr. Sankey. He has enriched evangelistic work by something approaching the discovery of new power. He spoils the Egyptians of their finest music and consecrates it to the service of the tabernacle. Music in his hands is, more than it has yet been, the handmaid of the gospel and the voice of the heart. We have seen many stirred and melted by his singing before a word has been spoken. Indeed, his singing is just a powerful, distinct, and heart-toned way of speaking that seems often to reach the heart by a shortcut when mere speaking might lose the road.
Not only is Ira Sankey regarded as America's most influential evangelistic musician, but he is also noted for his publishing and promotion of gospel music. His sacred songs and solos, published in England, sold more than 8 million copies and still in print. Also in collaboration with Philip P. Bliss and other gospel musicians of that time, he produced such popular works as gospel hymns and sacred songs, gospel hymns number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and the entire collected gospel hymns, numbers 1 through 6. The royalties and profits from these publications did much to finance the various campaigns conducted by Moody and Sankey. Other popular gospel hymns by Ira D. Sankey include Trusting Jesus, Hiding in Thee, and the 90 and 9. Additional popular hymns contributed by Sankey are Under His Wings I Am Safely Abiding, For You I Am Praying, and Faith is the Victory. The text for A Shelter in the Time of Storm was written by an English pastor, Pastor Vernon J. Charlesworth. In 1885, Ira Sankey copyrighted the text with his music and the refrain which he added, entitled the new hymn, My God is the Rock of My Refuge, based on Psalms 94:22. But the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. Sankey included this hymn in his publications of sacred songs and solos, as well as in Gospel Hymns number 5. In his book My Life and the Story of the Gospel Hymns, Sankey has written this account regarding a shelter in the time of storm. I found this hymn in a small paper published in London called The Postman. It was said to be a favorite song of the fishermen on the north coast of England, and they were often heard singing it as they approached their harbors in the time of storm. As the hymn was set to a weird minor tune, I decided to compose one that could more easily be sung by the people. Now, let us hear A Shelter in the Time of Storm, sung by yours truly.
Shelter in the time of storm, secure whatever ill betide, a shelter in the time of storm. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm, a shade by day, defense by night, a shelter in the time of storm. No fears, alarm, no foes affright, a shelter in the time of storm. The raging storms may round us beat, a shelter in the time of storm. We'll never leave our safe retreat, a shelter in the time of storm. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. Oh, rock divine, oh, refuge dear, a shelter in the time of storm. Be thou our helper ever near, a shelter in the time of storm. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary